Hello everybody, my name is Kikrulin, but you may also know me as Dino from PC2, and welcome to Ero, where we are going to be racing at a track which has the most difficult sector 1 on the entire calendar. I'm of course talking about Japan. The Suzuka International Circuit is a 5.8 kilometer or 3.6 mile track made out of 18 corners, 3 slow speed, 7 medium speed and 8 fast speed corners. So you would think that we would see a lot of overtaking happening on this track, which is far from the truth. The track is very tight and leaves little to no room to race side by side, and the main overtaking point is at the longest straight, going from turn 14 to turn 16, going into the final chicane of the track and possibly leading to another overtaking place on the track, with the start-finish straight with the only DRS zone on the track. Like we've already said before, Sector 1 is the main problem on this track for our drivers because of the curbs. The whole section is a slight uphill and slash downhill, so traction is already a big point to look out for, but the curbs are as deadly as everyone says they are. If you touch them slightly, you're off to the grass, spinning, or you just crash with the wall, or into the wall. So you either have to avoid them, or hug them entirely, so it's gonna be interesting to see how the drivers cope with those S-curves. We will go into a more in-depth analysis, of course, once we go on board with one of our drivers on their fast lap. The track, besides Sector 1, has very rich history, producing very entertaining races. The first event in 1987 was already a classic. It immediately saw another world title decided as Nigel Mansell crashed his Williams Honda heavily in practice at the Snake S's and consecutively could not start the race due to aggravating an old back injury he had received in his Formula 4 days, effectively handling the title to his teammate Nelson Piquet, the third and final title of his career. In 1990, at the start of the race, Prost moved over to take the racing line into turn 1, but Senna dived into the corner to Prost's right to pass him, and as a result he hit the side of Prost's Ferrari. Both cars went straight on, and both drivers sped through the gravel trap and crashed into the tire wall at the end of the runoff area. Senna and Prost were both unhurt, and neither driver bothered to check to see if the other was okay. This accident meant that Senna won his second World Drivers' Championship. In 2005 race was one of the most exciting races of the season, after many top drivers started near the back of the grid after the qualifying invariable weather. And the McLaren driver of Kimi Raikkonen won the race after starting from 17th place, overtaking the Renault driver of Giancarlo Fisichella at the beginning of the last lap after Fisichella was blocked by a backmarker. And, of course, Kamui Kobayashi took 3rd place here at the 2012 Japanese Grand Prix, after enduring race-long pressure from Jenson Button. Kobayashi became the first Japanese driver to finish on a Formula 1 podium in Japan in 22 years. So many great instances have been made on this very track, and I can go on and on about all the exciting races. So let's try to add on to that history and make this another race to remember. Commentating alongside me is, of course, Adam Lapidge. How are you doing today? And may I ask, what strategies should we expect from today's race? And will we see rain coming, which is quite common on this track? Hello?
Oh, sorry. I'm dealing with Watch.
Okay then.
Well, we've had some wet races here in the not too distant past. Last season, both PC1 and PC2 were wet. Yeah. So we might see that again. It's entirely possible. Even though I think, like real life Japan, it doesn't rain very often because of the time of the year where we go. In the game, doesn't really care about that. Like you can have bright sun at Silverstone, which, as we all know, never happens. So it doesn't care about that all too much in terms of what the weather's normally like when we go because of the time of year. It just sort of takes the climate into account. So we could see rain, we could see carnage from that. We might see carnage if it's a dry race anyway. PC2 yesterday was dry, and we had, I believe, 3 safety cars. Just because, like you were saying, the track is very thin. It is difficult to overtake. People get a little bit aggressive, so they're going to try a move somewhere you really shouldn't try a move, somewhere like a late dive into the hairpin, or trying to slide it down the inside into the second Degner, things like that, which can result in DNFs, and because the barriers are so close to the track for the majority of the circuit, anybody hitting a wall is likely to bounce back onto the track, which is then immediately going to cause a safety car every single time. So you don't need too much in the way of issues in order to get safety cars. But qualifying is dry but cloudy, so there may be the chance of rain later on, and we might see everybody diving out on softs. We'll just have to wait and see what they all do.
Yep. We also have only 16 drivers. We are missing 4 of them, unfortunately, as they could not have come, and we don't have enough reserves. Speaking of reserves, we are currently looking for reserves. There is a link in the description if you are interested. We are looking for PC reserves, so everything is in the Discord of the official Ero, and you can check everything there. You just need to do 2 time trials, and we will see where you're going to end up. As we already see some people out on track with, I think
Tony's out first, yeah.
Yes.
So yeah, like you were saying about having 16 drivers, Johnny is apparently on course to join at some point during qualifying the second AlphaTauri. He's just been caught up with some IRL stuff. As Tony's actually one of the sort of 3-4 guys out on mediums, so it'll be interesting to see what kind of lap he can put together on this slower compound as he nearly loses it through the S's. Good save, that man. That'll warm his tyres up. And we may be seeing Freddie later as well. He's got some school or college work, I believe, that he needs to get finished before he's allowed to race. So we'll have to wait and see. We might have a grid of 18, which is pretty good. It's not full, but it's not far off. And we're hoping to get a wriggle on and we don't have to re-lobby and things like that due to the real-life Jeddah Grand Prix starting 2 hours time, so these guys can not cause chaos. That would be good. Cheers, thanks.
I mean, even if we do have some restarts and a bunch of safety cars, I think we will still have just enough time to make it until the race. As we saw yesterday with the PC2 race, we had, like you already said, 3 safety cars and a restart, and we still made it just in time for the qualifying session. But I will hand it to you to deliver us a track guide, so take it on the rain.
No problem. Just jumping on board with Tony as he comes onto the only DRS zone on this Suzuka track. They were requesting to have one put in on the back straight on the run to 130R, and that was denied because 130R with no rear downforce would be terrifying. So into U-turn 1 and 2, this double apex right-hander. Want to clip both apexes, but try not to get too much on the curb, and then come into the S section. The curbs this year are dangerous around here. So there's a couple you can just about touch. We see Tony gets sideways as he just clips a curb and does it again. He's riding too much curb, and that's going to bite him. So let's jump on board with Lucas, who's just behind him. As he's just finishing off the S section, comes through Dunlop curve here. You have to really balance the throttle through there, so the back end doesn't just step out on you and throw you into a barrier. Flick it through the first Degner. Runs a bit wide, but keeps the lap. Through the second Degner, and then under the bridge, which is the run to 130R on this figure of 8 track. Into the hairpin. You can sort of brake later than you think and cut back and take a late apex to get as good a drive as possible through the long curve here of 200R. It's all flat out, there's not a problem with that, and we could see guys going side by side through here if they get good drives off the hairpin. Into Spoon Corner, you want to avoid both curbs on the inside because they are basically auto spin curbs. running a bit wide, straighten up the exit to get a good run here down this back straight where they wanted DRS and were told they weren't allowed because it would be ridiculous to go through this crazy left-hander here, 130R, flat out, 130 degree corner as it's, well, 50 degrees I suppose. And then into Casio Triangle, the final chicane. Want to maximise your exit here as well as we get down back onto the pit straight for, like I said, this one DRS zone. And Lucas does a 130.1.
And there
which
are
is pretty
people,
good for a starting lap.
And there are
on
people
mediums
behind
as
them,
well.
with Pavlakovic and Tuka finishing their lap with Tuka putting a time for pole position, a 129.8. Very, very impressive on mediums. We saw yesterday that the pole time was, I think, a 128.6. Which I did. So
you drove it, so you should know.
So that is.
But there is about a second delta between the tires. So Tuka's lap there for an early lap in quality, extremely good. As Luke Mills goes fastest. He is on softs, but still, that's really good.
That is very impressive.
So I don't know where this has come from. As Marek beats it, never mind.
That's a shame.
Marek with a 29.3 there, and we've got a Ferrari coming to the line as well, which is Jacob Mickelson, who goes P2 on a 29.5 on mediums.
Ooh, that's
a mega lap by Jacob.
Even better.
Yeah, so we're looking a bit Battenberg at the moment with the tyre compounds for the start. So Marek on the softs with Jacob on the mediums, putting it P2 for now, 2 tenths ahead of Luke Mills on the softs in the Alpine, and then another medium runner with second place in the championship, Tuka Rakola, first place Drake Dempsey not racing today, so Tuka's essentially the impromptu championship leader for this race. As Mateus Gola puts it P2 on the soft tyres for McLaren. That's a good lap as well. So we're getting low 29s on a track that isn't grippy right now, because it just doesn't have the rubber laid down, as we've still got about 13 minutes of session left to go. And they're still putting in low 29s, which is really good lap times. And Freddie Ellis in the second Ferrari has managed to put it up P4 as well. So Ferrari looking at a second row start for now, but we're not on 2022 yet, so they're not allowed.
Indeed, as George Parr in the other has just set a purple sector 2, so let's see what he can do as Bilbas puts a pole position as the 129.1 on mediums. Ooh.
That's insane.
Let's see if George Parr can challenge that as he goes second. Only 2 tenths off, but he is on softs, and Bilbas is on mediums. I don't know what he was drinking, but looks like that Red Bull AlphaTauri have borrowed some Red Bull from Red Bull, which gave them wings today.
Yeah, I think they've just stolen all of Red Bull's, as Red Bull currently 9th and 16th. So the sister team definitely doing better at the moment. But of course, we are in equal cars. And the 2 AlphaTauri drivers are, I would say, based on just raw pace alone, probably both top 5 or 6 on the grid. So they are probably favourites for the constructors, if they can manage to outscore Drake Dempsey's Red Bull every race, at least.
The only problem
when he is here, he tends to win.
The only problem is that the other AlphaTauri of Jonathan Voss is currently not here, as he actually joined. So unfortunately,
Speak of the devil, and he shall appear.
He will not be able to do a qualifying lap because he has joined a bit too late. Maybe.
No, he will.
I don't know. Maybe.
He can join in now. Oh, it's Freddie's binned it. Freddie's died in the S's. So he's currently P8 because obviously people have been doing faster times, so he's going to drop down. We'll go on board with Quill and just see if we can see the car. Because I think it goes even faster with a 28.9, and yeah, that seems to be a problem area. People have been losing the car through this weekend, so Freddie becomes our latest victim. Expect to see at least one person die there during the race. It's an easy corner to get wrong. And the barriers are very close on the outside, and the speed you're taking that corner, once it's gone, there's no right lot you can do about it.
So when we have another retirement, so when Drake is not here, it looks like Bilbas is the one dominating all the time, because that time on mediums is just incredible.
I mean, he's done 2 laps on those, so he's not going to want that to be his qualifying lap, I wouldn't think. The mediums are pretty good around here, but he's going to get swamped off the start with the softs. The softs are significantly faster for the first few laps. So Iron's probably not going to want to start on pole on the mediums. Although the alternate strategy is very powerful, and the medium is a good race tyre. It's just not ideal for the first few laps. And with all the cars so close on the first few laps, it can very easily cause a safety car. Which is just going to give another opportunity for him to get swamped if he does stick with those medium tyres.
And of course,
so I think it's kind of why some guys have just not bothered with the medium run.
And of course, if there's not a safety car, you've already said that a one-stop is definitely possible on mediums to softs, so he can do that strategy.
Absolutely.
But safety
Soft,
cars
medium,
are
medium, soft, both
definitely-
very easy.
Yeah.
You can probably, if you start on the softs, you could probably pit as early as probably about lap 8, assuming there's no safety cars, and still get the mediums to the end in a reasonable condition. If you're forced to pit really early, you can go on the hards. They're not the worst tyre in the world around here. They're a little bit slower than the mediums, but not too much. There's maybe half a second delta in that, but you are going to lose less than you would lose having to make a second pit stop. So it's a fairly lengthy pit timer here. It's not a slow pit lane, but because it's essentially the only fastest, like the only really fast part of the track down that main straight with the DRS, you do lose quite a lot relative to other cars.
And again, I'm going to ask if some of these people who have retired from the qualifying session, and if they are watching the live stream now, can you please tell us if it's going to rain at the beginning of the race or maybe at the end of the race? Seeing that Bill Bass is dominating on mediums, it's probably not gonna rain, and other people are also on mediums with Horak and Tuka, as Gola has spun! But yeah, please do tell us if
He's
it's
alive.
going to rain. He is alive, thankfully. But yeah, the curbs are deadly, maybe a bit too deadly for this game,
Yeah.
as the beginners really struggle
Yeah.
here.
Next guy to the line is Lucas Turkson in the Haas. He was about half a second up at the Sector 2 split, and finds another 2/10 in the final sector and puts it P4 for now. That's 29.4, it's still pretty good.
Not too bad.
And that would be... yeah, Nathan's just on his out lap, just coming up to start his run. Quill's bailed his lap. Oh, that will be an in-lap for Quill. He's got 4 laps on those medium tyres already. He's currently P11, so he's not going to have to use them again, whether he improves or not. Jacob just come to start a lap. Luke just come to start a lap, so he's going to want to back off so he's not too close to Jacob. But he's gunning it, so I guess not. And Tony's starting a lap as well.
And
So Mateus, with that lap he spun, I imagine he's just going to go straight in the pits. So next person to complete a lap will be Marek Zanamorovsky in the Mercedes. He's a 10th and a half up in the Sector 2 split. Flicks it through Casio. Bit cautious on the exit, doesn't really run it all the way to the edge of the curb. But he finds another half a tenth, goes P2 with the 29.1. So only Iron so far in the 28s, and he did that on mediums, which is, you know, illegal. But here's Johnny doing his first lap of the session because he was late, and it's a 29.0, so he puts it P2 immediately.
AlphaTauri
As Tuka's having none of that. So, as per usual, the usual suspects turning up at the front. Tuka, Ian, Jonathan, and Marek currently our top 4, who have all done their second run. Jonathan didn't get a first run because he wasn't here. They've all essentially done their second run, so they'll all have one more before the end of quali. As Nathan now, just coming around the Casio triangle, gets sideways on the exit, finishing his first flying lap with a 28.7. So he puts it P2 behind Tuka. The track really ramping up. I wonder if the track temperature's increased. The cloud cover does seem to be less than it was. So the track temperature could be increasing, allowing them to keep heating those soft tyres much easier.
and
On the run down into turn 1 and 2, which then gives you speed the whole way through the S's.
And the other Alpine of Luke Mills, currently a purple sector 2 somehow, as he nearly spins at the final chicane at the exit, and he puts a 129.2. So the Alpines are having
P6.
a really good day with P2 and P6. And looks like Luke Mills has...
George Parr is
car.
dead on the exit of the hairpin. He was just staying there to not getting Tuka's way, and manages to recover his car. So he's had a spin there, unfortunately. As Mateus Gola was just starting a lap on mediums this time, so he did his initial run on softs, and now he's gone back out on the medium tyres. So I wonder if he is going to be looking to start on these, and he wanted to get an eye in, get a banker lap in, and then really thrash it on the mediums as he comes across a stricken Jacob Mikkelsen in Sector 1. Doesn't seem to have any damage, but he was sideways and parked on track.
Matas Jelinek is finishing the lap, and P2 for the Mercedes driver.
Another 28.7. We've got 4 guys in the 28.7s, as Tony's done one as well.
This is really, really close.
It's a Tuka to Mateus is 400ths of a second. Mateus to Tony is 200ths of a second. And Tony to Nathan is 3,000ths of a second. So that little kick of oversteer that Nathan had out of the Casio triangle. That could have cost him provisional pole. That could definitely have been a 600ths worth of a problem with the run down to the line. And it was absolutely 3,000ths worth of the time loss. As he's just pulling back in the pits along with teammate Luke behind him. Then Tony's next round, but I think he's probably pitting as well. He's not going to want to do another lap on these, yeah. So then it'll be the Red Bull of Kenny's pitting. So Matthias is just starting a lap.
But he's going into the pit lane as well. And Mikkelsen as well.
Very
so
interesting.
not a lot of people out on track as of yet, but we do still have 4 minutes left in the session.
Yeah.
So
Matthias Jelenako's run out of fuel around 200R, so he's being a mobile chicane at the moment. Martin Horak is on track, just about to start a lap in the Aston Martin. Currently sat P13 with a 29.5. But if he finds half a second, which is not difficult considering the track will be more rubbered in, if he finds just half a second, that puts him P6. This shows just how close this grid is right now.
So let's keep
2 guys in the 29.5s, 2 in the 29.6s, 4 in the 28.7s, and then sort of a 10th between everybody else. So I think Martin's probably bailed this, yeah. That's a big kick through turn 2 and decides that it's not worth him continuing with the lap. As Iron's out on track just to start his final run in qualifying.
As I think Lucas Dixon is just on the 130 yard to start his lap as he's on the out lap.
Yeah.
So
he's currently P10, so he's going to want to either have a major improvement or hope somebody beats his time and he gets to be P11 on that alternate strategy. But there are some quick guys below him, so he's going to need to find a decent chunk of time if he wants a good qualifying position. As his teammate George gets out of the way before they get to turn 1 and 2. Decent line through there, just about keeps it in track limits. Gets a bit sketchy on the curb through turn 3. Keeps it pointing the right way, just about. Finishes off the S's now. Keeps it pretty tight to the right hand side to open up Dunlop, and that's a big snap, and he's out.
That is a very big crash. Thankfully, it's
Too
outside
much
the
curve
track.
on the inside of Dunlop.
Yes,
Thankfully, it's just
outside.
qualifying. Yeah.
Yes, and he is not ghosted with these games as weird ghosting system. So thankfully he's
I'm
off
pretty
the
sure it
track.
didn't ghost somebody in the castle section last week, so we can't really complain about it not ghosting somebody off track.
Yeah.
As Martin's essentially done a second warm-up lap, so he's just going to start his flyer now. He's going to come across a Mercedes in the S section, so hopefully they see him coming and get plenty out of the way. It's not the easiest place to pass cars on and out lap. But
And just
also
behind,
getting some kicks of overstep. These guys are essentially throwing the cars around these S's to try and maximise their time, but makes it very unstable. But a good drive around Dunlop and on the way down into the Degners. See how tight he cuts this. Misses the apex on the first Degner, runs off track, keeps the lap somehow. Not bad around the second Degner, could probably have kept his minimum speed a little bit higher. And then hard on the brakes down into the hairpin. It's an easy place to lock up these guys with no ABS, and he gets a big kick on the exit as well, which is going to harm his run all the way through 200R and down to Spoon Corner. So I don't think this lap is going to be incredible.
As Pavlakovic has finished his lap, and a 128.8 puts him in P5. Not too bad, as Horak nearly crashes into the wall.
He's taking some paint off the side of his front wing, I think.
And
But
thankfully,
no real damage.
thankfully he's off the track as Bilbas and I think Tony are on a flyer. So let's see what they can do. If
Bilbas with a purple sector 2, he's 3/10 up, which is going to give a 28.5 probably. Find a little bit more time here in this final sector. The extra rubber down on the exit of Casio should give him a better drive than he's had the rest of the session.
Let's see
He
what they can
comes
do.
to the line and it's 28.4. And Tony's just starting his lap. He was on an out lap.
As
just starting his
qualifying
lap.
is over. So this is going to be the only time that Bilbas is going to set, and it's a very, very impressive lap time indeed. And this is going to be the benchmark for the other guys, as Namirovsky just finishes his lap, a 128.5, puts him in P2.
And Nathan right in front of him made a major mistake in that final sector. He was a 10th up, coming up to 130R, and finished his lap 4 seconds down. So must have made a major error through 130R or Casio.
As Tuka is going to improve,
comes to the line of 28.2.
Jesus! As as Gola has been disqualified.
Oh, and Jacob does a 28-6 as that happens. Fortunately, Mateus, I think he probably spun it at Cassio and was trying to get back in the pits. But you can't drive the wrong way. Josh Barry improves slightly, but 0.003 of a second behind Luke Mills, so we'll stay P11.
Luke
as
Mills
Luke
is
comes to
finishing.
the line now with a 28-8, which puts him up a place, so he's ahead of Jonathan Foss, but Jonathan's on a lap, as Kenny now takes P10 and pushes Jonathan down as well. But here comes Jonathan, and he's 3.5 tenths up, and finds another 3 tenths in the final sector and goes P2.
Jesus, AlphaTauri is really doing the
Beats out
job.
his teammate by 200ths of a second.
And Tony is going to be the final guy to finish his lap as he cuts that chicane very nicely. Nearly loses the
3
car.
tenths up.
Let's see if he can maybe snatch pole position, as he does! By 20 thousandths of a second.
So, can we talk about the front row is 23 thousandths of a second apart, and the second row is 23 thousandths of a second apart?
What is this qualifying session? This is the most impressive qualifying session we've seen this season, definitely.
Yeah.
And it's
and then
without
two of the
Drake.
big guns from last season on the third row as well, with Marek and Jacob.
This was incredible. When you don't have Drake, we have this.
Yeah, we'll ignore the fact that Drake would have done like a 26-9.
26-8 probably.
Yeah.
As we are waiting for Bill Bass to enter into his pit box, and that is going to be qualifying over. So, Tony Ridge puts a pole position time with a 128.241, very impressive lap time, and just behind him on the front row, it's going to be Tuukka Rakola, the PC2 champion, with only 23 thousandths of a second behind. Then we have the two AlphaTauris locking out the second row of the grid, which is very impressive, as they have the form of Baku last time. Znamirovsky and Mikkelsen also have a pretty good qualifying session going into P5 and P6 respectively. As the other Mercedes is P7, and Nathan Powers doing pretty well for Alpine, puts it on P8, as Pavlakovic and Luke Mills finish out the top 10 of the grid. Next we have Sikerbike, Par, Dirksen, Horak, Elise, Niemsik and Gola in the McLaren, surprisingly disqualified for going the wrong way on the track, probably like you said going into the pit lane, but probably spinning, but we didn't see, so we don't know.
I think he's probably had a spin or made a mistake around Cassio. It's where his bright orange dot was on the track map. And as he's not Dutch, that's obviously because he's in the McLaren. So I think he's probably gone past the pit entry and then tried to get back in. But just speaking to Tuukka, he says his lap was basically perfect. So he maximised it, just didn't quite have the pace to pip Tony. So he's not going to be happy about it. You'd want his first pole in PC1. But at least he can't really blame himself for it, in terms of getting a big snap somewhere and then losing out by pole by such a fine margin. Would be quite frustrating, I imagine.
At least we know that the top 4 do have the pace to take the win, as the two AlphaTauris are only 2 tenths behind Tony and Tuukka, so I think it's anyone's race for those top 4, and maybe someone behind them as well, with Nathan and
anything can happen in
Znamirovsky.
Suzuka.
Yeah, anything can happen.
The front 4 could all die in the S's on lap 1, like, it's entirely possible.
Or maybe we're gonna have a Senna and Prost moment into 2-1 with Tuukka and Tony.
Yeah, we're going to get that just with Johnny and I, and the front 2 are going to get through fine, and Johnny's just going to be like, I want to be the lead AlphaTauri, and just murder him.
As people behind the top 10 are starting on mediums, and Lucas Dirksen, the only guy starting on hards, which, trust me, is not the best strategy. Hards
They're
are
not
horrible.
terrible. They're not terrible. They're better here than they are in a lot of places.
Yes,
You lose a little bit in Sector 1, but everywhere else they're fine.
but there's still
And you can't overtake in Sector 1 anyway, so it doesn't matter all that much. They're fine. They're not really needed, but they're fine. So Tony's going to lead them around due to... Oh, as he goes very wide at the first Degno, he'll be hoping to not do that when we're actually racing, as he's now going to trail gravel on the track all the way up to the hairpin.
I mean,
so Tony
one
leads
way
him around. He
to
didn't
hit
win
up.
last week due to stewarding. A couple of 5-second penalties in there, dropping him down to P4, I believe. And then On sharing the front row with him is Tuka, who's currently sat P2 in the championship, but P1 Drake Dempsey not racing, so another chance for Tuka here to close up that gap and maybe make a fight of this championship. He just needs to find a way to fight Drake on track when he is racing. We've got the AlphaTauri boys on the second row, Jonathan and Ian. Ian currently P3 in the championship. Got his first win last week, thanks to Tony's penalties. So he'll be hoping to build on that, possibly take a second win here today. And Jonathan, these two are going to have to play the team game, I think, because they obviously can't pit on the same lap and double stack, so they're going to have to possibly send Jonathan on a bit of an undercut, maybe, and keep Ian with the strategy of the front two. And then we've got Mercedes of Marek Zanamorovsky and the Ferrari of Jacob Mikkelsen on the third row, two of the big guns from last season. And the second Mercedes of Mateusz Jelenek in P7, so good qualifying for Mercedes. And Nathan, Quill and Luke with the two Alpines flanking the Williams at the back end of the top 10. And Kenny in P11's actually put the softs on in the Red Bull. So he'll be hoping to stick with these front guys, get away from the Haas boys behind him, and not lose time with those tyres. Possibly make the most of any mistakes anybody makes in these first few laps.
As we are currently finishing the formation lap, just waiting for a few more people to get their cars to the grids, to
the world's worst camera angle.
line. As we are having 4 and 5 red lights, it's a long hold up as always, as we are on the way for the Japanese Grand Prix, and looks like everyone has gotten a pretty good start, as I think Tuka got a brilliant start as he has the inside line on Tony and he's going to take P1, and Foss has overtaken his teammate Bilbas, but Bilbas is trying to go again as Tony and Tuka are side by side into turn 3, but Tuka is going to take it. He is going to be P1, as we already have some spins behind with a Ferrari, I think that is, but let's focus on this battle in front, as Tony is right on the gearbox of Tuka in that Alfa Romeo, so let's see what he can do in these next parts. Maybe he can overtake him on the hairpin, which is a favorable place to overtake. We have already seen some people overtake there, but he gets a pretty bad exit, but he is using a little bit of his ERS, as he might do a dive bomb as he backs out of it. As behind them, Jonathan Foss got a really bad exit as he runs deep into that corner, but he still has P3.
Yeah, so Mikkelsen and Jelenek went round in the S's on lap 1, so those two now at the back of the field, which is going to promote everybody from 6th place up 2 spots for free. As we've got some fighting in the back with Lucas Dirksen and Martin Horrocks going side by side through Spoon. Lucas trying to not lose too much time or places on those hard tyres. They'll come good, probably better than the mediums, after around about 10, 11, maybe 12 laps. So he's going to have a few laps where he's going to be quicker than the medium guys, as he's trying to move into Casio. Mark's already got a 3-second time penalty. For corner cutting. And
there was contact.
Lucas is off track and he's out.
There was contact with another driver, and that caused him to spin, as I think Tuka...
VSC.
Thankfully, Tuka and Tony were fighting, and just before that VSC, I think Tony was trying to make a dive bomb. As yes, we do
full
have
safety car. Jacob Mikkelsen's DNF'd as well, so I wonder what's happened to Jacob.
I don't know.
Whether he had damage and crashed into the pit wall, possibly. Trying to go a little too fast on entry and just taking it, like, after losing his front wing somewhere like earlier on, which could have been why he went around. So Jelenek and Niemczyk at the back of both pit. Jelenek's put mediums on, Niemczyk's put softs on. So they've both completed their mandatory tyre compound requirement, but there's no way Niemczyk is getting those softs to the end. Jelenek's only getting the mediums to the end if he has a bit of a miracle, as they both overtake the safety car. So I don't think anybody at the front's going to pit. I think these guys are all going to stay as they are on these tyres currently. It's too early to pit. There's nothing saying you can't rebuild that gap with the soft tyres, especially if you get a better launch off the safety car restart. And they will go an extra lap or two now because of this, as we're going to have to wait for Mateus and Casper to catch up at the back. So we might see some pit stops a little later than predicted, but I still expect one of the AlphaTauri boys to try and undercut, to go a lap or two early. Try and use the raw pace of the brand new medium tyres to hopefully jump one of these two ahead of them, and back them up a little bit into the teammate as Tuka fakes a pit stop.
And Tony actually falls for it.
Tony fell for it. American Quill are in as well as Kenny. So guys are pitting off the soft tyres. All the medium guys are obviously going to stay out here.
And they're going for hards.
Ruin their choice of mediums. Tony goes hards. You'll get those to the end. They're not the best tyre, but you'll get them to the end. Which is probably going to put him at a bit of risk when the guys catch him late on, if he stays problem-free for the rest of the race. But Marek and Kenny have put the mediums on, so they're going to have to eke those out to get to the end. It's technically possible, I think, but it's going to be difficult. They're going to need good tyre management. Hopefully another safety car or VSC or something like that to allow them to preserve the tyres a bit better.
Yep.
And yeah, Quill's put the hards on as well, so he'll be going to the end. As Casper's in again. And he's put some mediums on. So he's done his one lap under safety car on softs and then gone back on mediums. So does he think he can get these to the end?
I mean, maybe. If he does have a good tire wear and if he can manage those tires as well, I mean, they can probably go until the end. They are going to fall off at the end, like at lap 23. But if he can manage that, like he can
effectively do the race without a pit stop, which is going to give him a big advantage over currently the top 9, who have definitely all got to stop. So could pay dividends for him if he can keep them alive. It's possible he's running some lower tyre pressures to curb the thermal degradation you get in Sector 1 with the rapid changes of direction. So we've got an Aston Martin being led around by the Aston Martin safety car, but we're going to have one more lap behind this now as we've got to wait for Casper to catch up again. But everybody else in this train, so hopefully they'll keep it clean under safety car, boys, and we won't have collisions.
And the two Alpines of Nathan Powers and Luke Mills have got a brilliant start, going to P4 and P5, benefiting from people going into the pit lane with Tony Znamierovski, Pavlovic and Sikirbikia. So already doing pretty well, and Par and Horak also improved to 6 and 7 positions respectively. And the most positions gained is of course by Goa, starting from last after the disqualification, going to P9 already on those mediums. So
yeah, he's the last of the guys that haven't pit though, so he's going to have to make up places and try and hold off Tony behind. So he's kind of lucky that Tony's on those hard tyres. He's not going to be able to get them up to temperature very easily on the safety car, so it might be a little sluggish for a lap or two, which could allow Mateus to build a little bit of a gap, a little bit of a cushion behind, and hopefully have a go at Freddie and Martin in front of him. He kind of needs to clear these other medium runners earlier rather than later, when the front 5 then come into pit off their soft tyres, probably around about lap 12-ish, I would think, after a safety car, to then go and do the remaining sort of 15-16 laps on the mediums.
And of our pit stoppers, Tony is currently leading that pack who has pitted, so it's gonna be interesting to see how fast they can get rid of this traffic in front of them with those fresh hards or mediums, depending on who got what tire. But it's going to be interesting to see the pace difference between slightly older mediums and fresh mediums. And if maybe Znamierovski can make a move on Tony, as Tony has worse tires.
Marek's going to have a couple of laps where Tony's going to be a little bit weak with those hard tyres. It's not the easiest thing to heat the medium tyres up under safety car, so the hard's going to be very difficult to get them up to an operating temperature to a point that they're happy, especially when Sector 1 is the most demanding part of the tyres on the track. Getting them into temperature for the first time around through Sector 1 is going to be tricky. So that's probably Marek's best opportunity if he can get through there. If he can find a way to slide through the S's. And then probably be in a position he can start having a go at the likes of Mateus and Frederick ahead. I think this is going to boil down to is these guys that have already pit, can the likes of Marek and Kenny get those medium tyres to the end of the race in a circular condition? Or will they be completely square? And how will Tony and Quill's pace be on those hard tyres? And then once the likes of Tuka, Ian and Johnny come and pit, how much are they going to hit traffic and get held up? So they're going to need to chase these guys down. And then obviously you've got George, Martin, Frederick and Mateus who are on the mediums. They're going to go long here, put the softs on towards the end, and then they'll be coming at speed and chasing as well. So they're going to be our fastest guys on track at the end. But how much will they be able to gain? As Tuka's going very slow through Casio. And he drops the hammer on exit.
As we've got
a 5-second penalty for Kenny, as he's had contact with Mateusz Jelinek.
As Nathan
so
Powers
there's
goes,
no damage there.
As Nathan Powers goes to third, and Tuka actually remains in P1, as Jonathan Foss regains that position from Powers as he runs
And
very
goes off
wide.
track.
Yes, he does, and
And
Luke
Luke's
Mills.
gonna have a go.
But Jonathan Foss
Thinks
left
better
no
of it.
room.
Luke playing it smart. He's had enough spins this season that he doesn't want to go side by side through the S's.
Yeah. He just had to
Tuka and Iron have gone at the front. I think Nathan went a bit too early, overtook Jonathan before the start-finish line, so it told him to give it back. And there's 0.6 of a gap here. We've got Mateusz Jelinek in the pits, and Casper, I think, has gone round in Sector 1 on those medium tyres, so that's going to make it harder for him to get them to the end. As yeah, Mateusz Jelinek must have got damage from that contact on the safety car, so he's going to put the softs on. And he'll be looking to come at speed, as Casper now gets a 3-second time penalty. He's around at the second Degner, hits the wall, and has damaged his wing, so he's going to have to pit and get off those mediums. As Tony's managed to make moves, and he's got past Mateusz, and now he gets Frederick as well, so he's done very well on those hard tyres to get them in the operating window for the restart. And he's already up to P8, just 2 medium runners in front of him, and then he's up to the soft guys right at the front, right at that sharp end. That's 2-second gap between Iron in second and Nathan in third, though. This front two, Iron and Tuka are not waiting around here. They know Tony's coming. They don't want to get held up in traffic or have to fight people behind them.
As I think
Tuka with that fastest lap of a 31.6.
As I think Znamirovski has also overtaken Gola, and I think Tony is trying to go on a move to Par, as Par is leaving a little bit on track as he goes very wide at the exit of turn 2, but he will still remain ahead, so Tony has to be a little bit more patient, as Par nearly loses the car in the Senna S's, so let's not do that, as Luke Mills has overtaken Jonathan Foss.
Jonathan's DC'd.
That is very unfortunate, as they've had a very good qualifying session and the race so far, so let's hope that he can rejoin as soon as possible, as he is going to lose way too many positions after this, which is not gonna benefit him, as he has all tires, as Tony goes down the inside of George Parr and makes that move stick, as he gains 2 positions with Foss ghosting, so he's already making those hard tires stick, as Jonathan Foss is in the lobby. So that is very, very good indeed.
I dived on and invited him as quick as I could. So Nathan's managed to bridge a 1.5 seconds back to Luke, his teammate, which is going to leave Luke vulnerable to the guys behind when the DRS gets enabled in time for the pit straight next time around. They're not going to have it this time, so he should be pretty safe into turn 1, but Martin Horak, Tony and George behind are going to be queuing up to get past the Alpine driver. He's going to be a bit of a sitting duck. So Tuka leads from Iron by 0.5 seconds as DRS gets enabled. So Iron's going to get that advantage down the straight next time around, unless Tuka can find 0.5 seconds on him in this lap alone.
As
Nathan's now 3.2 seconds back from this front two, so he's going to be looking to close this up. Otherwise, he's going to be a bit no man's land.
Znamirovski trying to go around the outside into turn 1 and 2, and will he make it stick? At least he's fighting for it, and he pushes him off track. And he gets overtaken by Gola, and there was slight contact, and he loses 2 positions to Gola and nearly Foss. But Foss has those older tires and cold tires, as he was disqualified, so he has to struggle a little bit, as that was
3 seconds time penalty for Tony.
Ooh.
So that gives Tuka and Ryan a bit more breathing space for the end of the race. They don't have to overtake Tony if they catch him, if they stay penalty free themselves.
And of course, if there's going to be another safety car at the end, which there probably will be, I don't know who will crash, but someone will crash.
If you've been looking at Sector 1, I think that's very likely. So yeah, unfortunately the disconnect for Jonathan Foss has dropped him down to P11. So he's lost a lot of places. He hasn't lost all that much time to his teammate, but it's the places, because the field's still so tightly bunched. Tony's on the back of Martin now for P5 as well. But Luke's managed to haul himself back into Nathan's DRS range, so he's going to have that to defend with. But Nathan kind of needs to get a wriggle on, although he is closing in on Iron. Iron seems to have made a mistake. He's dropped a second to Tuka in that lap, which Nathan's gladly taken out of him. So Nathan's lapping almost the same speed as Tuka at the front. It's just Iron's made that mistake. As Freddie manages to get past George with the DRS.
And Gola might do it as well, as Par dangerously dipping to the inside. Thankfully no contact was made there, but that was a pretty late defensive maneuver from George Parr. Thankfully no damage was caused, but that was a little bit dangerous. But
yeah, but our last remaining Ferrari now up into 7th place.
Very impressive.
He kind of needs to get a move on. Like, Marek's not too far behind him, and he's on those fresher tyres, which he might be trying to get to the end. And Freddie's going to have to pit, so he wants to create as big of a gap as possible, so he's got less work to do on the soft tyres at the end.
As Tony is
but the
trying to
said
overtake...
He's the purple sector 1, so I don't know where he's found that from.
As Tony has overtaken Horak round the outside into the hairpin. Jesus Christ, that's a nice move.
Okay. But he's now going to be right in the back of Luke on those soft tyres, and those soft tyres are not going to be starting to feel a little bit itchy. So Tony's going to have a decent chance here of overtaking the Alpine driver and getting up into P4. Nathan's deployed, I think, a decent chunk of battery, as Luke's essentially run out of that charge and managed to build the gap up to 2 seconds back to his teammate. But he's got a bit between his teeth now, chasing down Iron. Iron must be struggling with the tyres or have some minor damage or something, because he's lost another 0.6 to Tuka on this lap. And Nathan is closing in all the time. Tuka's absolutely flying out front.
And Tony's trying to make a move on Luke Mills. Luke Mills knows that he does not need to defend that. Tony is way faster than him, so he just lets that position go. And Tony goes to P4. Now he has, like you've said, Nathan just in front of him. So let's see how fast he can catch him up, and how fast he can catch Bilbas and Tuka right after that.
I think Nathan might be a bit disappointed that Luke didn't defend like a lion, but...
But I think there was no point. He's going to have
Tony bearing down on him sooner rather than later with those soft tyres now 8 laps old.
I mean, Tony already overtook Mills even like 1 kilometer before turn 1, so there was really no point in trying to defend, but yeah.
GP2 engine.
GP2 engine, yes. But
Nathan's now just 1.1 behind Iron as well, so he's closing up to this DRS range. He does have a small battery disadvantage, but he's still got plenty of charge to play with. The guy's just struggling with these tyres.
Now, as the fight with Parr and now Namirovsky still continuing, as Parr has extended a little bit of the track as he goes very deep into Spoon. I'm not gonna say Cops, it's Spoon.
Yeah, right.
But they are both not using ERS, but Namirovsky does have a lot of it to use, but Parr's light is flashing. Namirovsky trying to go around the outside as Parr is literally squeezing him off track, still leaving enough room, but not too much. As Foss now...
Tony does the fastest lap on hards, and Luke is in. So Luke's going for this undercut, putting the medium tyres on. They'll get to the end from lap 10. It's going to hope he comes out in some clean air, which I think he's going to do. If he can just about get out ahead of Kenny, I think the Red Bull's going to have it, coming at full speed down the straight against the 50 miles an hour of Luke Mills. Yeah, so that's going to drop Luke to 13th, but he has already made that stop, so he's not going to have to pit again. And we'll have to see where he filters out with the other guys that were on the soft tyres when they eventually come in. I think Tuka's probably going to extend this stint quite a bit. He wants to avoid as much traffic as possible. Especially with Tony currently P4 and just, 6 seconds back? So he's going to have to make up about 18 seconds on his mediums against Tony's hards over the course of the race. That's about a second a lap. First few laps that might be fine, but I think after that it's going to become kind of difficult to maintain that sort of pace. He's burning battery though, Tuka, so I think he might be coming in this lap. He tends to do this. Deploys a lot on his in lap. He's currently almost 5 seconds ahead of Iron, as Iron's coming under pressure now from Nathan. And Tony's in the DRS range of Nathan as well, so these guys are going to get towed down this pit straight. And Nathan might go for a move already into Casio.
Let's see if he
they
can
were basically
make
level at DRS detection, so I don't even know who's going to get it. As Iron just about holds the place, and they're both going in. They were dueling to go into the pit lane.
So all of our front runners...
They've done pretty well there. And Tony takes the lead. And Martin Horak comes through into P2 in the second of the Aston Martins.
And we have a battle
all the way down to P9.
With Gola and Elise. Gola has overtaken him and Foss has overtaken Parr. So 2 battles happening into turn 1 and 2. And they were very clean indeed. Let's see where Tuka and Bilbas are going to end up, as Sikerbikia has overtaken Bilbas, but not Tuka. And Nathan Parr
yes, Tuka's got a decent chunk here of clean air that he can just bang some big laps in. But then he's going to come up behind the hard tyre on a Quill Pavlakovic, so he's not going to want to get held up too much by Quill on his hards. He needs to really get the hammer down and get some fast laps in to bridge that gap to Tony. If Tony's not stopping again, which I think is unlikely with him being on those hard tyres,
we have yellow flag.
Go some, because we've got Jelenek around in Sector 1 again and lost that front wing.
Thankfully, no safety car.
Not yet, not for that. He was stopped long enough. But he is going to drop him right to the back of the field as Niemczyk is coming up behind him with a car that's intact. So he should easily make this move when he arrives at the Mercedes.
As we have a really tight mid to top field with Gola, Elise, Foss, Par, Znamierovski and Pavlakovic all battling for that final spot on the podium, as I think Znamierovski trying to go around the outside of Par as he makes a little bit of a switchback, gets a better exit. He has DRS as Jonathan Foss goes into the pit lane, so that's going to be another position for him.
Though, so this is just a drag race down to turn 1.
And
Marek seems to have a little bit less downforce, got a better exit out of Casio, and he is going to make the move down into turn 1 and 2, promotes him up into 5th place. If anybody on the mediums is going to... Oh, and Freddy's round. Freddy's on the grass on the exit of turn 2. And so that actually gives Marek 4th place and drops Freddy down to 8th. So that's a free position for Tuka, as Jonathan Foster's pit. So the last of our starting soft runners is in the pits. So everybody's got off those starting soft tyres now. So this race is going to come down to how fast these guys who have recently pit can lap and cleared the traffic of the guys that haven't, and how well the guys that haven't pit can keep their car going at a good pace before they come and put those softs on and then reclose these gaps in.
Speaking
Tuka's
of
got
that,
about 5 seconds of clean air before he hits anyone, so I'll have to see what sort of laps he can bang in. As Jelenek gets a 3-second time penalty, just to add to his woes for corner cutting on pit entry. Somehow.
speaking of clearing traffic, Nathan Powers is trying to go on a move of Sikarbik, the Red Bull driver. He is going down the inside into Spoon. They are still side by side as they leave each other room just enough. And this is very clean indeed that Sikarbik, I think, gets a very good exit, but Powers has overtaken him.
A little bit of contact there as Nathan just washed out from the understeer.
Sikarbik has slipstream, so he makes that move stick as Powers just stays behind. And this is very bad for Powers, as he has fresher tires and he will lose way too much time.
This is ruining Nathan's race as Iron's just driving off in front of him. And Tuka does do a fastest lap with a 31.3. So he is fastest man on track right now. But last lap for Tony was only a 31.8, so he's only gaining half a second. He needs more than that to make up the pit stop.
And Powers has overtaken Sikarbik, finally. Now let's see if he can catch up to Bilbas and regain that lost time that he lost behind Kenny. But yeah, as you've said, we have a new fastest lap with Bilbas, a 131.2, and let's check really quick for the penalty.
Kenny's gone round at Dunlop.
Ooh, okay.
Just about keeps out of the wall, somehow.
And no damage.
That's going to give a free place to Jonathan Foss. It all seems to still be intact, but the tyres are going to be on fire, which is not ideal.
So
especially coming out of Sector 1, they were probably somewhere around the surface of the sun, in terms of temperature. They're already extremely hot coming out of that sector, so the four-wheel drift isn't going to help matters.
They should be like at 106 degrees at the end of turn 7, I think. They are really hot after Sector 1, so you have to cool them all the way into Sector 3 to have another good run and cold tires for another round of Sector 1. And it's pretty difficult to manage the tire temperatures on this track, especially as Tuka puts another fastest lap.
Faster again. Yeah. Tony's actually burnt his battery completely.
Oh, and we have a retirement.
We've got a Mercedes round. Is that Marek? No, it's Mateus.
It's
and he's
Jelenek.
out.
Where did he even
retire?
retire?
Car?
It is.
It's a safety car. Yeah, he's on the inside of turn 2. So that's definitely a safety car because he's too close to the track to really do anything with that car.
As he disappears.
And this sort of bails out the guys that have already pit, so everybody from Tuka backwards kind of gets bailed out here, and it closes those gaps right up. They're not going to have to keep closing in. So I would expect the guys at the front all to pit. Quill and Tony likely to go on medium tyres, and George, Marek, Mateus and Martin can go on softs here and get to the end. We'll have about 12 or 13 laps left when we get to the restart. You can make a fresh set of softs last that long if you've got a brand new set you didn't use in qualifying.
And Yellowneck literally just disappeared. If I would ever rate this game, I would probably give it a 1 out of 10 to realism, as we don't have a truck going out to the track and get in that car. We have like aliens, like into the barrier.
It's Japan. It was just an invisible kaiju picking up the car.
As into the barriers would say aliens, as Sonny Rich is going into the pit lane to get rid of those hards. Let's see if he goes for softs, as they can probably go until the end. You really have to sell them a little bit.
It is softs for Tony. If they're a brand new set he didn't use in qualifying, and Tony did go out on the mediums to start with, and Martin puts a brand new set of softs on as well, along with Mateus and Marek behind them. George is also in the pits for Haas, as Tuka now retakes the lead of the race, but he's going to have Tony right behind him on those soft tyres. This could be a bit of a duel. And Iron's up to P3s, so all the big guns turning up at the front once again. And Martin Horak in the second Aston Martin's going to come out in P4, so that safety car's really helped him, staying out on those medium tyres that he started the race on. And he's going to maybe be able to have a go at these guys that are normally running at the front. Martin's normally somewhere in the midfield, but definitely has pace, and he could help Tuka out here. If he can put pressure on Tony and Iron, they're not going to be able to have a clean run at Tuka. So it could be a bit of team play from Aston Martin.
The only problem is we know how fast Tony and everyone else is on those fresh softs, so Tuka and Bilbaz don't really have a chance here. I think the best possible solution would be if they would have pitted as well, or I mean along with everyone, to get rid of those mediums. And this kind of reminds me of yesterday's PC2 race. We had a similar incident with the safety car coming in on lap 15 or 16 or 17, I don't know. And a lot of people pitted on mediums, and some people stayed on some people pitted for softs, and some people stayed on mediums. And over the long run, the medium runners really benefited because those softs really wear out way too much, like I think 5 to 6% each lap. So if the soft runners really want to go until the end of the race, they are going to be near the puncture zone at like 70 or 75% of wear. So it's gonna be interesting to see how they cope with that, as
Tuka and Iron's mediums are gonna come back into this on the last sort of 4 or 5 laps, as the softs start to become a bit tricky to work with. I think their main threat really is gonna be the McLaren of Mateus Gola, because out of the top 6, he's the only one that's on brand new softs and doesn't have a penalty. So it's gonna be Mateus. Marek's gonna be pushing at speed. Whether George and Quill and Nathan can live with them, maybe make up some places as well, they could have an outside chance of a really good finish here. But I think Tony, Martin and Marek's penalties might come back and bite them a bit here, as we are going to do at least one more lap under safety car, waiting for Frederick and Casper to catch up at the back.
Sikavika goes into the pit lane.
As we've got Kenny's gone in, put the mediums on.
Mediums? As he retires?
An 11-lap old set of mediums, so he's then chosen to retire. Because he would have had to pit again. Unfortunately.
Yes, that is very unfortunate. And speaking of unfortunate, it's unfortunate that the Alpines are this low, as they were having a very, very good race, and now they are P11 and P9. So let's see if they can improve on those lost positions.
They've just been kind of screwed on the strategy. Like they put the mediums on about a lap and a half before the safety car came out, so they got caught in traffic and couldn't use the best of their medium tyres. And then when the safety car came out, they wanted to go back to the softs and everybody else to pit, so they essentially just dropped them in where they were when they rejoined when they pit. So that's how sort of Tuka and Iron have managed to jump up the field. They were relatively close to their front running guys, and they chose not to pit, stay out on those medium tyres, and get the benefit towards the end of the race. And I mean, you can fight this. Like, the softs aren't impossible to defend against. Like, Tuka and Iron can fight this, but it's going to be very difficult for them to maintain position and not get a little bit swamped, especially if they get pushed wide through Sector 1.
Yeah,
if Tony tries a move on Tuka in Sector 1, Tuka gets pushed wide, he could lose 4 or 5 positions. quite easily. So he's going to have to be very good on the safety car restart. As the safety car's sort of teleporting around, so I'm not sure what kind of upgrades that Aston Martin's got. Hopefully they haven't been put onto Tuka's car.
Again, aliens.
That would be kind of
aliens again. So yeah, we are at the halfway stage of the Grand Prix, or at least a little bit higher of the halfway stage, like 60%. Let's check the penalties a little bit, as the safety car is probably gonna go in this lap.
And he's leaving quite a gap here to Tuka.
And there is the safety car coming in.
Just sticking with the safety car. It's no.
So yeah. Wait, what? Oh, that is very unfortunate. So yeah, the safety car is coming in this lap, so let's just keep on board with our leader, Tuka. Or this might be a bit better camera with Tony. The helicopter cam is brilliant, as Tuka goes very early of the safety car, but Tony kind of thought of that, and he has gained a lot of time on that already, as we don't see a lot of overtaking, as everyone was caught off guard by that move of Tuka. So that was a very good safety car ending. I approve, as Tony, we can see that he has way more grip in Sector 1, as Tuka is sliding a little bit over the course of the Senna S's. Not losing too much time, but here in turn 5 just going way too wide and losing like 2/10 to Tony. The problem with Tony is that he has that dirty air of Tuka's car. So he will lose a little bit of time, which will be good for Tuka, because the tires could be wearing out a lot, as Tony tries to go down the inside of Tuka into the hairpin. Let's see if he can make that move stick, as there was slight contact with Tony's rear wheel and Tuka's front wing, and it was a move done by Tony. He is currently leading, but he does have that 3-second time penalty, which will cause him major harm if he cannot get that gap between them to 3 seconds, as he already has 6/10. So I think he's already doing the job. But his straight line speed is not the greatest, if I see this here, so it's gonna be interesting to see how much time Tuka gets by only that, as Powers is gonna try a move on Pavlakovic, the Williams driver, as Pavlakovic is on the middle of the track defending the inside, but Powers goes down the inside, as they are going side by side into the final chicane, as Pavlakovic remains in P8. But he has a pretty bad line onto the start-finish straight, and Powers is gonna try and go for another move, as he is defending once again. He is trying to go around the outside, but thinks better of it, and he will be a little bit more patient and stay behind Pavlakovic, and maybe wait for him to make a mistake in the Senna S's or maybe somewhere else. So if he doesn't make a mistake, as I think Horak has made a mistake, and he has dropped 2 places behind Namirovsky and Gola, so they are going to be very happy about that, as Gola is the only one in the top 5 that has pitted for fresh softs and doesn't have a penalty. So he is going to improve majorly from this if he can overtake Namirovsky and Bilbas, or if he follows Namirovsky with that DRS, which is going to be enabled next lap, as Namirovsky now catching up to Bilbas as he goes a little bit too deep, thankfully not off track to get another track extending penalty, but he will still be in the DRS range, which will be open next lap, like I've already said. As Elise gets a 3-second time penalty, the Ferrari driver, unfortunately out of the points and probably going to stay there for a little while, as I think Niemczyk is trying to go on a move on Elise. He goes around the outside into the chicane, the most favorable place to overtake for our drivers, and he makes it stick. But Elise, nearly loses the car and crashes, but thankfully nothing really happened, as Namirovsky has overtaken Bilbas for the final stop on the podium. And Bilbas doesn't really have anything to fight that or to counter that, as he has 7-lap-old mediums. As Adam said before, those softs are going to struggle a bit at the end, so Bilbas and Tuka have to wait until that stage. As Adam is back! Hello!
Hello. Never had a seizure. I'm back.
You've missed practically nothing, as Jonathan Voss gets a 3-second time penalty.
Oh, no rain over the safety cars.
Nope. I don't even see...
Penalties starting to rack up, but we haven't had any additional DNFs, so yeah.
Yep.
And everybody still seems to be sort of connected to the train as well, so even the likes of Casper and Frederick at the back, they're not out of this yet.
This is probably...
Mistakes in front and people running wide and the likes, they can make up some good places. Speaking of making up good places, Mateus still running in P5, has made 12 places off the start after his unfortunate disqualification in qualifying. So he's currently 5th, which is a pretty good run for the reserve driver, currently racing for McLaren.
And he might also get a podium, as Nathan Powers tries to go for a dive bomb on Pavlakovic at the same place he did on the last lap, and he actually manages to make it stick. And he will have DRS to defend with, but Pavlakovic also does. But I don't think that Pavlakovic is close enough to try and make that move, but maybe Jonathan Foss in the AlphaTauri can maybe do something. He can't, as Nathan Powers nearly makes contact with the Haas driver of George Parr. So thankfully nothing happened there, but yeah, like you said, Gola is doing amazingly, and he is one of the only ones in the top 5 that doesn't have penalty, so if he can stay in the 3-second gap of Znamierovski, he is on for a podium, which is a very good outing.
That's put pressure on Arjen as well.
Yes. Let's see what
and
he can do.
Martin's kind of coming with him. Martin's within that second of Mateus as well, so second Aston Martin's not out of this yet either, if he can keep hold of those tyres better. These three have significantly more battery than the two in front, around 40%. Iron's currently sat at 65, and Tony's dumped his battery to try and bridge this gap back to Tuka. It's currently 3 seconds, so he's just outside the penalty window, but those soft tyres are going to die probably in about 4 or 5 laps, so these last 2 or 3 laps could be a little bit sketchy for the Alfa Romeo driver. His medium should start coming a little bit better in a couple, and then by the last couple of laps the softs will be screaming for mercy, especially through Sector 1, so we could see some fairly major mistakes through Dunlop, as Nathan and Quill are going wheel to wheel through Casio again.
And Jonathan Foss is trying to join that fight, as he is also very, very close, and I think that Nathan might also go on par, as he does make that move stick, so at least he's gotten rid of Quill for at least a moment, so he doesn't really need to worry about him. But Tony Rich, our leader, has already taken those 3 seconds to Tuka, as we have a retirement of the other Red Bull driver, and we have a virtual safety car.
This is going to help the guys on soft tyres. It's going to allow them to stay alive a bit longer until the end of the race.
Yep.
As on my screen, Johnny's driving around without a helmet, so that's a penalty.
What?
Yeah, Johnny's driver guy in the car doesn't have a helmet on, so that's a penalty.
How can he even see with all the wind that's coming to his eyes?
Yeah, all the little shards of rubber on the outside of the track are getting flicked into his face.
That's
it's
impressive.
Like, ow.
How
maybe he's got perspex under his halo just to stop that sort of getting him.
Maybe they have improved that AlphaTauri to have glass on that halo.
The perspex under the halo, it's fine.
Like IndyCar, I think, has that. Yeah. Which I don't know why it's not here. Probably because of the downforce limitations.
Doesn't really fit with the whole open cockpit thing, does it? But,
sure.
And you know what F1 teams are like? They'd have all sorts of aero elements on the perspex, and you wouldn't be able to see through it anyway.
As they cannot even see now that the tires are bigger. As
VSC is over.
Yes,
and
it is.
Tuka's closed in slightly on Tony. It's now about a 2.5 second lead. But Tony gets a better drive through Dunlop, as he will do until these tyres are essentially gone. And Marek's starting to pressure Tuka slightly as well within that 1 second window, just about. So if he can gain a little bit more time on the Aston Martin driver through this lap, he's going to get DRS down the pit straight. And Tuka does not want to have to fight somebody behind. He wants to close in
as I think
on Tony in front of him.
As Jonathan Foss is very close to Pavlakovic, only 1/10 separating them. He is literally riding aboard his gearbox, and just behind them Luke Mills and Elise are also very close to trying to make a move, as unfortunately for Luke Mills, who was running in P5, currently P11 because of the safety car. Very unfortunate, as he was running very well, but Elise looks like might make a move.
Speaking of making a move, Mateus and Iron would have been going side by side into 130R, but Mateus gets far enough in front just to retake the racing line. Iron's going to fight this back into Casio, possibly. But Mateus on those soft tyres gets on the brakes later, and he was able to take his line, but Iron and Martin behind are now going to have the DRS, which Mateus isn't going to have, so he's going to be a bit of a sitting duck here into turn 1. As Iron gets down the outside of him, but Mateus is going to fight this, he's not going to let it go. Iron's far enough in front by the time they get to the first turn that he's able to retake that 4th place. Both these guys don't have penalties, so they're racing for position on track, but because of their fighting, they have slipped outside that 3-second window up to Marek, which isn't going to help them by the end of the race. They're going to need to close that back up, otherwise the podium's essentially sorted.
And Mark is catching up to Tuka as well. Very quickly.
Tuka's lost another couple of tenths to Marek, but Marek did have the DRS, which is probably worth a couple of tenths, so these two probably lapping a similar pace. Those medium tyres of Tuka should start to be a little bit better than the softs now, those softs being 7 laps old. But we have had a lap or two of safety car, and maybe half a lap of VSC within that 7 laps, so they'll still be fine for another lap or two, but again, I think they're going to lose time in the last couple of laps. And Tuka's right hovering around that 3-second penalty of Tony's in terms of the gap between them. He's going to want to make sure that's under 3 seconds by the time they finish the race. And Tony's managed to regenerate a bit of battery, so if Tuka arrives on his rear wing, he will be able to defend slightly better than he would have done before. Tuka's spending some as well, possibly to protect from Marek getting as good an exit as possible out of Casio. As Quill and Johnny are side by side down the pit straight, both with DRS. So they're going to be drag racing all the way down, and George Paz is going to probably get in somebody's way because he doesn't have the DRS up in front. Cool, manages to hold P9 from Johnny. And Luke is now all over the back of Johnny, and he's going to possibly go for a move as Johnny DCs again.
Unfortunate for the AlphaTauri driver, as Sigurd has also left, but he has retired, so that's fine. That's fine. And Gola overtook Bill Pass as well for P4, and he's already
managed to make it work this lap. Possibly deployed a bit more battery, and managed to make the move into turn 1 and 2. So he's going to be looking to take off now after Marek. Currently 0.8 of a second behind the penalty window of the Mercedes driver for that podium position. But he's going to probably come under pressure from Iron in the last 2 or 3 laps if he can't build a gap, as those medium tyres start to be a little bit better than the softs. And Iron still has that more battery to play with. He's still only around about 50%. So he doesn't have to be too careful with his deployment. But Marek's right on Tuka now. He's managed to close that gap up quite a lot through Sector 2. And he's going to get the DRS and a pretty good slipstream here, and he might even be able to make a pass for P2. So you could deploy some battery to go a bit defensive. But he's going to stick to his line, force Marek to go down the inside. Marek thinks better of it, as Tuka comes across and closes off the apex.
So yeah, like you've said, the mediums and softs should be at around equal pace at the moment. So I think they are on equal terms as right now. The only thing is that Znamdowski has DRS and a little bit more ERS to fight with. But the problem is that even if he does overtake Tuka, he will not really gain anything from it because of that 3-second time penalty. So that is going to be the problem, as Bill Bass has made a mistake and he has lost a position to Nathan Powers and forces Horak wide onto the gravel, and he doesn't even have a front wing. I don't know how that happened, but it happened.
Probably contact, which might be why Bill Bass went wide. He could have lost the place to Nathan and had contact with Martin. So not going great for AlphaTauri is Jonathan's pit, and it's given him 12 lap old softs. For some reason, so he's going to have to come in again, unfortunately. So that is going to drop Jonathan well off the back of the pack and out of the points. With only 2 laps left to go, we are not going to see any more safety cars to group him back up to the back. So Jonathan's best bet here is probably just to go fastest lap. As Marek now just 3/10 behind Tuka, and Tuka needs to find 7/10 of a second in 2 laps in order to get on to Tony. Marek's gonna go for a move again. Tuka goes defensive, and Marek doesn't care and tries to get down the inside as contact.
God.
Oh, Marek's rounded into the barrier and loses half his front wing. He does still have all his tyres. I think Tuka left a car's width, and Marek maybe just understeered off the apex of the corner.
I don't really know.
I would have to see onboards to know for certain.
That was
Tuka now just needs to get a wriggle on. Still got another 4/10 to gain on Tony, but I think Tony's softs have started to go off a bit. Tuka's gained about 3/10 already this lap.
Znamirovski holding up everyone as he crashes with Elise, and Elise was inside him. Ooh.
Oh, kinky.
You don't see that every day.
They say all the drivers have a close relationship, but I didn't realise it was that close. As Freddie now gets a 3-second time penalty for multiple warnings, and well, this promotes Luke back into the points. So
yes,
if he can keep this here, he's going to jump Freddie on penalties, and that will be a 4th points finish in a row for him. So you can see the improvement race to race from Luke. He was running P5 earlier. He's going to be looking to possibly get a bit further up, but I think there's probably too much of a gap in front of Freddie. As he's going to try down the inside on the exit of Spoon, and there's going to be a drag race down to 130R. So we'll have to see who's running less downforce. Luke's definitely running less wing.
At least just let him through
without really deploying any battery.
At least I think lifted off and just let him through, as Power has lost a position to Pavlakovic. As we are going on to the final lap of the Grand Prix, Tony is still leading, as Tuka is not really gaining those tenths of that gap to 3 seconds, so he really needs to rely on Tony getting another penalty, which probably won't happen. Or maybe it will.
Tony's done very well with these soft tyres.
Yes, he has.
Still lapping very quickly.
Pavlakovic is now close to Bilbas. They are going to be fighting for P5 of the race, as both of these drivers do not have a penalty. And I think Bilbas is, having the advantage here, as he has those a little bit fresher mediums, because softs are probably going to be at around 60% already, and mediums should be at 50%. So he does have.
Yeah, but Quill's still got 50% of his battery pack, so he can deploy all the way here through 200R.
But Bilbas
and then on the
does
exit Spoon as well.
But Bilbas does as well. They are on pretty equal
He's got
terms.
A lot, but he's not spending any. But then neither's Quill. I would have expected quite a big dump there, unless he's gonna bank all of it on a move through 130R and a bit of a dive possibly into Casio.
As Bilbas gets a penalty. And Drake has crossed the finish line. He wins the race, but we are going to be on board with this battle. Yes, Tony.
Tuka gets P2. Forza habit. Matej's going to come for P3 and Nathan for P4, so it's just down to these two now. Quill gets down the inside.
Let's see if he can make it.
I am forcing wide at Casio, but he's going to let him have it. That penalty from Iron. He's going to drop him behind Quill anyway. And it also drops him behind George and Luke. So Luke takes P7. Iron drops all the way down to P8. P9 as Frederick gets P8. Oh, from a phantom 20-second time penalty. So that'll get removed.
Yes. And the final few guys that are just finishing now, Horak and
so that will put Marek P10 taking the last point. And then we've got Martin and Jonathan. So I think Jonathan's probably on a fastest lap attempt here. He's 9/10 up through Sector 1. So, as he just comes up to the Sector 2 split just before 130R, Martin finishes in P11. Jonathan's 2 seconds up on his fastest lap. So I think this is going to be a point, lap? Definitely.
Maybe, if he doesn't mess up the final chicane, let's see.
Yeah, pretty good with Casio. And takes the qualifying line, keeps it tight around the final turn. And that's a 28.9, so yeah, that's going to be a fastest lap, so that's definitely a point.
Yep. And that is race over. What a final lap. That was very impressive, and Gola is driver of the day. I think I'm gonna agree. He took the final step on the podium as he started last.
Yeah.
So that
started P last after the silly disqualification in qualifying. So absolutely, recovering to a podium is very, very strong.
Very impressive indeed for the reserve McLaren driver, as we see Tony very happy with that win, as that is his second, I think, or first, because he lost in Baku.
Yes. So yeah. he'll be hoping to keep this one.
Yeah. But
hope he doesn't get a penalty somewhere. Although there is possible Tuka's going to get a penalty for the contact with Marek.
And that's
but he
promote
does have
Gola.
6.2 seconds worth of gap back to Mateus. So if it's just a 5-second penalty, if it's deemed to be carelessness as opposed to anything sort of reckless or dangerous, he would keep P2. But if it's 10 seconds, he drops all the way to P4 and off the podium.
I cannot
So he'll
get
be
race
hoping
director.
it is only a 5-second penalty.
I cannot get the race director. It's a black screen.
Rip.
I hope
somebody else did.
Oh, there we go, there we go, there we go. So yeah, Tony Rich, the Frenchman, has won today's Grand Prix in Japan. So congratulations to him, of course, for keeping that 3-second gap to Tuka, who is P2 in today's race. And then we have Gola on the final step on the podium, starting from last to third. Very impressive indeed, but we might see him being promoted to second, after Tuka might or might not get a penalty. Next we have Powers, Pavlakovic, Par, Mills, Elise, Namirovsky, Bill Basforak, Foss, Niemsik, Sikerbeke, Jelinek, Mikkelsen, and Dirksen. I actually finished it in time this time.
Yeah, well, Marek's not happy about the contact. Tuka's not happy about the fact that Marek went for the move despite having 6 seconds of penalties. Marek is, and I quote, impressed you thought everything was fine with that.
I mean,
So
it is expected to see that.
But we will
they
see.
are-
It comes down to what the stewards decide. It's not up to us.
Yeah.
If it was up to us, you'd all be banned.
Jesus, we can only speculate what will happen, but yeah, it's gonna be to the stewards to decide what is going to be with that incident. As yeah, that was a very interesting race indeed. I really enjoyed it. So, do you have any last words before we run things up?
Was slightly less carnage than I anticipated.
True.
We know what Suzuka's like. But it is Silverstone next week, so we look forward to seeing a Mercedes send it down the inside of a Red Bull into Cops.
I don't. I don't.
That's 100% going to happen. And if
I
it's not
mean-
going to happen here, I'm going to do it in PC2.
I mean, if Owen would still be in Red Bull, then maybe you would have done that. Maybe cheeky DNF.
I'm just going to purposefully qualify right next to Harvey and do it to him.
Or maybe Zexo, but please don't do
Yeah.
it to him.
Just because he's Croatian.
Don't do it to anyone. We want as clean of a race as possible.
It's 100% an overtaking place. Fine.
Fine, whatever you say. But I'm not gonna call Cops Spoon.
Yeah.
I hope.
Bullshit.
So yeah, that was the
Topsy
Japanese.
Spoon, Stowe's 130R,
Yes, it is.
Maggots and Beckett's a Curva del Sol. You know.
No.
Drag corner
No,
names out of
no.
nowhere and stick them into Silverstone, it's fine.
No, Maggots and Beckett's are the Senna S's.
Oh yeah, you called the S's in Sector 1 the Senna S's as well, and that's Brazil, but never mind. I'll let you off.
Okay, never mind. So, we hope
Corner
that
names!
we hope that you have enjoyed today's Grand Prix and the commentary, of course. And we had fun, as you can see, and of course, before we run things up, we would like to say thanks to our partners, Bolidomania, Race Inside, Gridfinder, JR Designs, and Discord. Thank you for partnering with us, and we hope to continue the partnership for a long time. You can also support us on Patreon and donate, of course, and follow us on Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter. There are links in the description down below. And as I've said in the beginning of the stream, we are currently looking for PC reserves, so you can sign up. There's also a link in the description for the Discord, the official Discord of Ero. You will find all the information there to get you started. Even if you are starting your league racing career, we are searching for anyone who is willing to race full-time or a reserve. But yeah, we are currently looking for just reserves for all three PC tiers: PC3, PC2, and PC1. PC3 is on Friday at 4 PM UK time, PC2 is at 4 PM UK time on Saturday, and PC1 is on 4 PM UK time today on Sunday. So just find whatever suits you and just sign up, and maybe you will be you will be lucky and you will be able to race. And yeah, that is probably it. You can also hit that like button and subscribe to our channel. I'm not gonna sell out. I'm gonna stay quiet. So yeah, any last few words from our Martin Brundle, who is also British?
Well, you know, standard.
So no, okay.
I mean, it was a typical PC1 race. People yelling at each other in PC1 chat, you know.
To be honest, that was probably the cleanest PC1 race so far this season.
Says a lot.
Says a lot, yes. But yeah, maybe we're gonna have a better race in Britain, which Britain is mostly known for pretty mediocre races, so I don't really expect too much happening. But yeah, that was the Japanese Grand Prix. We hope that you enjoyed today's commentary and the race. This has been the European Racing Organization. My name is Kickerlin, or Dino. With me commentating was Lapidge, and we will see you next Sunday for another exciting race of Ero Pc F1. We hope to see you there, and stay safe.
Later.